Hey guys, Flo from Off to Landsy. I'm a French-Australian filmmaker based in French Alps, and today I want to talk about the movie that changed my life. You know, sometimes when people say that a book changed their lives, or a quote, or a movie, well, for me it's actually true. 20 years ago, my dad took me to see the first Lord of the Rings at the cinemas, and at the time I was just 12, I had no idea about the story, and I certainly did not have any idea of the impact that it would have on my own life. I actually kept the ticket from that day because I knew that something felt different, something had changed in me. I actually still have the ticket today here. It says 24th of the 12th, 2001. I would say this is probably my most prized possession, more than any cameras or lenses I've ever owned. So this is probably the nerdiest video I'll ever do, but I just wanted to share this with you because even 20 years after, these movies are a massive source of inspiration for me and probably the reason that I do what I do today. So why did they have such an effect on me? I think I was at the right age and the right time. Back then, 20 years ago, there was barely no internet access and there was no social media like today. And basically there was just less distractions. I had always been a fan of fantasy even prior to watching that movie, but it was really the filmmaking aspect that got me interested and intrigued me and eventually made me fall in love with cinema. As soon as I saw the movie, I ran out and bought the VHS of the behind the scenes, and seeing how the movie was made completely blew my mind. I then bought magazines and the soundtracks. Any articles that I would find I would read, and for a 12-year-old it was quite odd. I also discovered New Zealand through it. I had no idea about this country when I was 12. It was so far from France, and if you would have told me back then that 15 years later I would move and live there for 3 months, or that I would get to visit the Hobbiton set, I would have not believed you. So now let me explain 3 major aspects of my life that are directly linked to the Lord of the Rings. So 1, my family. Back in 2010, I wanted to move away from Europe because I was sick of studying and I just wanted something different. So I had the choice to go to Canada or Australia. I wanted to go to Canada so I could ski, but one of the main reasons that I wanted to go to Australia is because it was so close to New Zealand. So I picked Australia. If I would have not picked Australia, I would have not met my wife, and we have been together now for 10 years, and this year we became parents for the first time. My wife and I actually always talk about retiring to New Zealand at some point because we're both Australian citizens. So the second impact is career-wise. So from the time that I was 12 and then I'd seen that first movie, I spent a lot of time learning about filmmaking and cameras and lenses and production and all that sort of stuff, and that never stopped. I'm sure I would have been interested eventually in cinema because it's in me, but having started this process of learning filmmaking when I was just 12, it's been with me for a very, very long time. I think that it kind of piqued my interest very early on as to what I wanted to do, even before I had an idea of what a career path would be. Obviously, I don't make movies, I don't work on drama sets, but I am a filmmaker. I love telling stories, and most of the time I try to do that in beautiful sceneries. A fun fact is I actually went to the same film school as the DP of the Lord of the Rings, the late Andrew Lesnie in Sydney, and I actually saw the Oscar that he had won for the first movie. It's actually after a first trip to New Zealand in 2014 that my wife and I created Off to Lands. We had no idea at the time that this would become a business and that business will allow us to have the life that we have now. We had been so inspired by New Zealand and took so many photos and videos that we needed to share that content. So that content got some attention and things got shared around. We got quite a lot of views and contacts, and basically it kickstarted our business. But without my love of the Lord of the Rings, we probably would have not gone there that early, or at least not as many times as we did over the past 10 years. And the third and last part is my interest in myself as a person. For the past 20 years, The Lord of the Rings has never left me. Every time I watch the movie, I have this feeling that I can't get with any other movies. And I feel deeply connected to it. It reminds me of who I am as a person, but what my true interests are. And I go back to a more simpler version of myself, the core version of myself, if that makes sense. Obviously, I don't live and breathe Lord of the Rings. I've got so many other interests that are so far from it, but it is always around me. For example, I've got a poster right next to me in my studio of the first movie. We also happen to own a very old version of the books from the 1960s. and my wife, as a Christmas present last year, got me the 4K versions. So it's always around us in our house, and it's always a source of inspiration even 20 years after. So these days we consume so much like movies and advertising and TV shows, and I do as well, but it's really nice that sometimes some of them are different and have a more meaningful impact on our lives. I wish I could thank Peter Jackson and Tolkien for this, of course. So Peter Jackson, if you see this, I'd love to chat over a coffee when I'm back in New Zealand, but you know, who knows. That's it for me for today, guys. I know this is very different from the kind of content that I do, but there's nearly 30,000 of you on this channel, and I just wanted to share something that is a bit more personal, still related to filmmaking, but I just wanted you guys to know me a bit more. Also, please let me know in the comments if you've got a movie or a book or anything that changed your life. I'd be very curious to know. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.